Today we're in Leicestershire at the Glebe Fishery. It's one of the finest fisheries in the country, and I've been joined by one of the UK's top match anglers and a very good friend of mine, Darren Cox. We're going to be looking at feeder fishing today, and specifically feeder fishing for carp. Let's go along and see how he's getting on. Well, it's a cold old morning, mate. How do you fancy your chances?
It is, you're right, but it's a great place. I think we'll catch some fish today. We must do.
It's a fantastic looking fishery, isn't it, this?
It's a lovely place. It's the model fishery, Dave. Absolute model fishery.
Feeder fishing has come on, hasn't it, so much in the last sort of 5 or 10 years, particularly the last 5 years with the advent of commercial fisheries.
Well,
I mean, it's a bit of a science now. There was a time really when feeder fishing was sort of chuck it and chance it, wasn't it?
Totally, yeah. I mean, when it first evolved, it was basically a canister on the line. Now the rigs have changed completely. You know, we've learnt a lot from all aspects of angling. And we've just really honed it and fined it and tuned it and turned it into an art form in itself, like you said.
Is that a bit of an indication then?
Yeah, it's starting to get liners and first signs now. Just saw an old fish just starting to bow wave off the side of the island. And
I reckon you're going to get one in a minute.
I think we could be in some business soon.
Just run me through the gear you're using today. What sort of rods and reels and lines and so on you're using?
Well, I would say it is a myth that you need a stiff rod, to be honest, Dave. That's one of the mistakes a lot of people make, even top anglers, to be fair. You know, we're catching big fish, but you need a relatively soft rod because you're using heavy line and you're often pulling hard to get these fish in quite quickly. So I use basically a very through action rod that can withstand a lot of pressure, but you know, you can cast the distance. Feeder fishing is all down to accuracy and where you want to fish. You know, you have to be mindful of how far you're casting your feeder. You need a rod that will cope with the situation, for example. If you can't cast 40 metres, then it's no good. You need a more powerful rod to cast 70, 75 metres.
Is that a carbon tip? No.
Yep, all carbon. Basically, you know, the bite indication is not as sensitive as it needs to be with, say, roach fishing or bream fishing.
Right.
You're looking for positive bites. You're setting a trap whereby the fish is going to pull the rod off the rest, basically. That's the best scenario. You know,
and the length of that rod again is?
This is 11 foot.
Right.
But I would vary between 11 and 12 foot again.
Yeah.
With the
So what's the sort of ideal casting distance on a rod of that length, would you say?
Up to 35, 40 metres, I would say. And then I'd probably look at going to a 12 or maybe even a 13-foot rod. But
and casting weights, I mean, you see on the back, printed on a lot of rods, or a lot of blurb in the magazines now about rods being capable of casting like 3 and 4 ounce and all that. And I think we both know that you need a pretty powerful rod for that sort of thing. I mean, what sort of casting weight would this, you know, a loaded feeder is quite heavy, isn't it? So what sort of casting weight would this cast, in your opinion?
You'll cast 3 ounces with this, no problem whatsoever. Yeah. But if you want to cast it a big distance, that's where you're going to struggle. What you have to remember with a casting weight on a rod is, if you've got a big casting weight on your rod, the chances are your rod's going to be very powerful, and you will pull out a fish with stiff rods. Right.
And the line again is what?
The line, the key to the line is fishing a line that has a relatively low stretch. I'm using 8 pound today, which sounds ridiculous, but it's you know, a lower diameter line that's got very little stretch. It means I can be a lot more accurate when I'm casting. And that's, I mean,
a lot of anglers a few years ago, you would have just like cringed if somebody said they've had 8 pound on the reel, wouldn't you?
Well, you would.
You know,
you would.
But I mean, really, I suppose that's just down to carp and what have you. Is the reel important?
You just got to have a good, powerful reel, one that will withstand a lot of pressure. Plenty of ball bearings in it, you know. Yeah. There's lots out there on the market today. You just get a reliable brand. That was obviously a big liner that I thought that was on.
You're going to get one in a minute, aren't you?
I think so, yeah.
I can sense it. Before you cast out, mate, let's just run through the rig you're using today.
Yeah, sure. Well, it's a very, very basic rig. Obviously, a lot of the best rigs are basic. Most fisheries insist on a running feeder.
Why?
But basically, so that if you snap off when you've got a fish on, it doesn't tether the fish.
Right.
The fish could hook itself up in weed or snags.
And the hook's barbless, of course. Yeah.
Hook is barbless, so it's, you know, within probably seconds of you losing a fish on the whole rig,
Yeah.
the fish has dislodged the hook and it's away then.
Right.
And that's key. But basically all I've done is I've got what I call a twizzled loop with a bead stopping it, and the swivel runs...
Is that bead running?
No, the bead's fixed.
Right.
But the swivel runs on the outside of the loop, and the twists in the line just act like a small brake, so that it becomes a self-hooking rig.
Yes.
And that's all we're trying to do. We're trying to get the fish to hook itself.
Okay, and the feeder, what's the feeder?
Feeder is just a grip mesh feeder. It's just a nice feeder. If I'm fishing in shallow water, then
This is one of the feeders with the spikes inside,
that's
isn't it?
Yeah. Just helps grip the bait in. You can actually fish with a relatively dry mix.
Right.
Squeeze it hard, and it explodes out of the feeder quickly.
Okay.
You know, especially in shallow water, you want your bait to be coming straight out of the feeder, because these fish at the moment are fishing in.
I mean, how deep is it over there, you reckon?
Well, we've got the maximum 18 inches, but very, very tight to the bore, which is where I'm trying to get.
So you don't want the feed staying in the feeder for a long time.
You want the feed out, because the fish are coming, hitting the feed.
Yeah.
And then, obviously, your hook bait's landing around the feeder. You're getting the fish worked up in a frenzy.
Yeah.
And they just pick your bait up. I think it's part of the feed coming out of the feeder, and they're on instant.
Yeah. Then below the feeder, then you've got what, 2 loops?
Yeah, I've got 2 loops which just simply act like a boom.
Right.
It just means that your line stands off while your feeder's coming down, so you get a lot less tangles. Yeah.
And then is the hook length, in your opinion, is that critical on length? I mean, some fisheries have got sort of length limits on hook lengths.
I mean, here there's an 18-inch limit, so we've got to
right, so you're fishing to that.
Stick to the rules.
Yeah.
But general principle with carp fishing is the closer you can get the hook bait to the feeder when fish are feeding well, then the quicker you're going to get a bite.
Okay. Now the business end, right? This is where a lot of it, the hook end of it. I mean, hair rigs have become more and more and more into match fishing, haven't they, in recent years?
Yeah.
I mean, we used to laugh at things like this. You know, it was a specimen angler's domain, and that was it, wasn't it, really, for boilies and so on.
Yeah.
I mean, hair rigs now are just so common, aren't they, in match fishing? I mean, how have you set yours up?
Well, again, it's very, very, very basic. I mean, we're trying to create a self-hooking rig. So all I've got is a quick stop tied to a small
Is this done with a knotless knot?
Just tied up with a knotless knot, that's all it is.
Yeah.
Very, very simple. Like you say, we've learnt from the specimen anglers, but it's about setting the trap.
Right.
You know, getting your bait presented well. The fish comes along, picks the bait up, tries to expel the bait, and instantly it's hooked. As the hook pricks the fish's mouth, it bolts, picks the feeder up, which then slows it down on the twizzle loop, and it's on.
Yeah. I mean, some people use little hair stops and all sorts of that. I mean, are they the best, these ones? These are the Corum?
These are the Corum quick stops, and I find them better than most.
Just faster, isn't it? Because it's always there, I guess.
Yeah, it's quick and it's easy.
So what hook baits are you going to be using today?
Well, I'm concentrating on slightly bigger baits today, Dave, and I'll be going for sweet corn in 1s or 2s, or luncheon meat. Okay. And all I've done basically, I've punched that meat out with a bait punch, a large size bait punch. Just gives me a little bit of variation, so I can fish one big piece of meat.
So how do you get that onto that?
Now we'll show you. Well, again, so using the Corum quick stops, that very, very quick and easy. Literally, you got a little tiny spike that you can use as a bayonet.
Yeah.
Then you take your piece of meat, push that through the centre, pull it out, turn the T-bar over. And
so simple, isn't it? Just so simple.
You got a perfectly presented bait then on a hook.
Brilliant. Well, there's fish swirling out there, so let's get baited up and catch me a fish, mate.
Okay.
What ground bait mix are you using today?
It's just a fish meal mix, Dave. I mean, basically these fish are brought up on a staple diet of green swim stim, so try and use...
That's the dynamite stuff, yeah.
Just try and use what the fish like at the end of the day. No point in being different when you know what the fish like.
Yeah. Accuracy is obviously very important with this as well.
Yeah, it's the same with all feeder fishing. The principle of feeder fishing is you're accurate, you set the table in a small tight area, the fish find the bait, come along, and they're much easier to catch.
Yeah.
And you know, that's I've got a good marker there on the island, so I can get nice and tight.
And you're using a line clip?
Yeah, I'm clipped up, but it's very important to clip up. Otherwise, you can't be accurate enough if you don't clip up. Just keeps you off the trees rather than.
Is that another line bite then?
Yeah, I'm getting signs all the time now. You know, you can see the odd fish moving towards the island. When we first started, there wasn't even a sign, so it tells you that they're coming to the noise as well.
Yeah, that again.
You know, we just had a few quick casts, and it just means that those fish are ready.
I don't think that one was a liner.
I don't think that was either.
Good fish?
It feels a lovely fish actually, that. It's just, you just got to be so patient. You know, we've seen those indications all the time that, you know, you just got to convert them into bites, don't spook those fish.
That
early.
rod's ever so forgiving, isn't it? I see what you mean.
Yeah,
There.
it's just like, just elasticity. It's worse than the same principle as pole elastic, you know.
Am I right here in your way?
Yeah, you find that diving, no problem.
There's no need to rush fish this big, is there? I
Well-
mean, like, it doesn't take long to put a big weight together, does it, a fish like this?
No, you come back with 4 or 5 pound on the hook every 10-15 minutes. You know, you can soon build a massive weight, can't you? It's all about being patient. It's taken a long time to get this fish on the hook.
Yeah.
So, you know, I want to get it in and get back out.
Yeah.
Just bring him around now.
This is where a lot of inexperienced anglers lose fish, isn't it? Just at this point.
Yeah, just kite him round and just try and get his head up without putting too much pressure on him. It's just a
Are
case
you
of
using a
coax.
clutch?
I have got the clutch slightly set so that if it goes mad and it pulls away, it'll just take a little bit of line from me rather than break the hook length.
Right.
And I actually set the clutch at home when I set my rods up. There you go.
Nice one. Good start, mate. Well done.
That's a nice fish.
How big?
I'd say it's about £4. It's a nice start to the day.
Is it right they call this pool uglies?
It's funny you should say
I
that.
was just
yeah.
looking at the nose on that one.
They do, and Roy tells me that it's because he put all the ugly fish in here.
Well, I wouldn't
Well-
mind catching a few of those ugly fish with myself.
I don't care how ugly they are as long as they weigh.
Brilliant. And what was that? Was that on corn or meat?
That was on corn, yeah. I
Right.
just started on corn. It stays on well. You know, I've cast in plenty of times, got lots of bait down there, and now I'm just sort of biding my time a bit. I've seen fish mooching about.
So how many feeder falls would you say you've put in there to catch that?
25 feeder fulls, which is quite a lot of bait. But you know, I'm fishing for big fish. They can eat a lot, these fish, but you've got to get the bait there, set the trap, and then just be a little bit more patient. Start slowing down the casting,
Yeah.
and just letting the fish come to you rather than
And what about
making
what about
them.
the free offerings? I mean, you've got casters and a bit of corn, a bit of meat. Do you think it's important to keep that going into the mix as well?
It's vital. I mean, what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to make them eat the particles rather than the ground bait. They'll come along and eat everything, but if you just put ground bait in, they'll what we call gill feed.
Right.
They'll start picking the ground bait up, sucking and blowing the ground bait all the time, and they won't be expecting, you know, these small particles in the feed. What I'm trying to do is make them look for that rather than gill feed. Once you can get fish there picking off the bottom, they just lose their inhibitions and they become a lot easier to catch.
Interesting. I know you've got this special hold all behind you, Darren, with loads of made-up rods. What's all that about?
Yeah, it's not laziness, I can assure you, but you often find with a lot of the matches these days, you haven't got long to tackle up. And you know, it's easy to go to a venue and say, well, catch on the pole there or catch on the waggle there, But there's so many variables these days that, you know, fish have got fins, they can swim, they can do things, they can feed differently. So I like to have all my kit set up. I can have 2 feeder rods set up, I can have 2 waggler rods set up, and it's a case of, you know, get to your peg, decide what you want to do. My kit's there, ready.
Yeah.
You know, if I want to say, right, I'll be better on the waggler today, I know that it's going to take me 2 minutes to set that rod up.
Yeah.
And, you know, it just means
superb idea, isn't it? It's all, obviously it's all padded so the rods are protected in there as well.
Well, that's it.
Really
I mean, it's all ready. If you know which venue you're going to, you know, today I'm going to the Glebe, I know what I'm going to need, so I can set it up at home when I've got lots of time. I can set the rod up. I can get the drag set perfectly on my reel rather than mess about having to do it. I know what my drag needs to be set at depending on what hook length I'm going to use. So, you know, it's that kind of thing that just fine tuning everything, being 100% prepared on the bank, and you know that largely comes from a lot of my international duty. You know, you have to be absolutely meticulous with everything you're doing, because if you're not prepared, you'll be beaten by somebody who is.
Brilliant idea.
Yeah, it's, you know, it just works well. You know, the years gone by where we were going to pegs on rivers where we didn't actually know what we'd need. You know, these days, you know what you need.
And you can park behind your peg on most of the swims as well.
You can carry much more gear. Oh, there's one. Yeah. So we've been getting lots and lots of signs. There's fish there, but they're just.
Well, it's typical. It's typical of commercial carp fishing. This is, isn't it? I mean, quite often you get a slow start to the day, particularly on a cold day like this, don't you?
Yeah.
And then it just gets better and better as the day goes on. But I mean, haven't commercials come on down the last sort of 10 years or so?
Oh, it's incredible. Absolutely incredible. They've changed the face of pleasure fishing. They've probably saved match fishing, I would say. You know, there's still lots of good fishing outside of commercials, but you know, we need them.
It's easy to dismiss, Darren. I mean, it's easy to dismiss some of the venues as just holes in the ground, and some are, aren't they? But
yeah, some are done very well, and some are like this, just done absolutely beautifully.
There are some fantastic fisheries now.
Yeah, and you know, but we do still have to remember that these places are full of fish, but fish don't need to feed all day, every day, and you've got to be patient. You can sit there for a long time waiting for a bite. Then you can catch £100 in 2 hours.
Well, with fish this size, you can.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah. And you know, I think we do have instant fishing these days, and we do take it for granted a lot of the time that we expect to catch fish all the time. But it's good in the fact that you can actually come fishing for a few hours these days. You know, you want to do any practicing for a match or anything, you can have a couple of hours and you can put yourself right on the method.
And doing it how you're doing it, of course, it doesn't cost a fortune on bait, does it?
No.
You know.
No, you don't.
I mean, how much did your bait bill come to today? About £5?
Well, a couple of bags of ground bait and then probably £5. Yeah. Not a lot, but you know, you can do it much cheaper if you really want to. You know, if you just fish meat or just fish pellet, then
it looks like a good fish.
It's a cheap day out. Yeah, it feels a good fish. And you know, the bigger the fish are, the more wary they are, and you have to wait for bites. You've got to be so patient. But they're fit fish in these pools because they're well looked after. There he is.
Nice one.
Yep.
Another mirror?
Yeah, it's another mirror, Dave. Just a sprightly mirror.
Frisky mirror, by the way.
Yeah, but it's a nice fish. You know, they're all. That's probably one of the smaller ones. That,
lovely
isn't it?
Condition, though.
Yeah,
isn't it?
lovely fish. We'll get him in the net anyway.
I like the way you put that landing net in there. A lot of people make the mistake of trying to handle fish like that into the net and drop them back or whatever. It's a much better way to transfer in the landing net, don't you think?
Definitely, they're just too powerful, these fish. You know, they can really kick and fight, and you know, you can break your gear, you can hurt the fish. You've got to be very, very careful and treat them with kid gloves. Just
was that one on meat?
That was on meat, yeah. Yeah, a couple on corn and last few on meat. Just
I reckon you're
settling
going to
in.
sack up now.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Go for it, boy.
See signs straight away, like the fish honing on the feeder.
Yeah.
Oh, we're in. We're in again.
It exploded over there and you up that there. Gordon Bennett, that's a big fish.
It's pulling hard as well. Kited right off to the right, straight there, look.
I mean, it's so shallow over there. 2 or 3 of the fish you've hooked today, they're just, the minute you hook them, they're just sort of boiling straight on the surface.
Yeah, it's interesting, that bite as well. It dropped right back. It obviously picked the bait up,
You know, if
pricked
you had,
it, felt it, and bolted back off the shelf.
if you had too stiff a rod on this, you'd be cracking off on the bite, wouldn't you, today?
Yeah, exactly. And it's just cushions the blows of the fish as it bounces side to side with its head.
Yeah.
Just a steady pressure. It feels like a big fish, to be honest. You can never tell with these fish until they come in. Some of them fight like mad. Yeah, it's giving a good account of itself, isn't it?
Can I have a go on your rod later on? Now you've got the fish feeding, can I have a go on your rod a bit later on, please?
There it comes. Just keep the rod low until it comes under rod tip.
Was that yes?
Yeah, I think so.
Cheers, mate.
That's a good fish, is that? Not ready quite yet, is he? It's coming round now. So you think they're beaten, but just that last bit.
They don't like it up them.
Nope. No. It's one of those short, stocky ones, isn't it? A good fish.
Wow, what a fish.
There we
There you go, well done, pal.
Nice fish.
Well, it's a great one to finish off today. We'll finish off today's session because when we finish this, I'm going to have a go with your rod, all right? Well, what have we learnt today? The mix was obviously right. Darren's caught loads of fish on it in the past, but it was a slow burn today. It was cold to start with. The temperature was well down last night, and it probably took in the region of 2 hours to get the fish feeding properly. Once they did, it was action all the way. Balanced tackle, vital. Switching round with hook baits, important. But really it's caught fish on meat and on corn. It's been a great session. I've really enjoyed it and I hope you have too. See you soon. It's late October, the overnight temperature's been about 6 degrees. I've been joined again by my old mate Darren Cox, specifically to look at pole fishing for carp. How do you think it's going to go today, mate?
Hi Dave, it is a nice day. Got to be very conscious though that the nights are cold, aren't they? Even though the sun shines out. But you know, I've plumbed up. It's looking good. Set on a nice peg, so I think we should catch some fish today.
Let's have a look at your rigs first. Before you start fishing, we're looking at it today as a 5 hours or a practice session for a match.
Yeah, yeah.
Just take me through the rigs that you've set up.
So well, what I've done is I've basically tried to find what I class as the maximum stable depth. You know, carp look for flat surfaces with ledges.
Right.
So I'm trying to find the flat area, just move out a little bit away from it, and I can feed on the ledge and away from the ledge. Give me two choices of feeding.
Okay.
I've got about 6 foot of depth where I want to fish. So basically, I've opted for a 0.4 rig. There's absolutely no tow today. It's almost flat calm, a slight ripple, but nice.
Okay.
So I'm looking at basically fishing with a 0.4 rig, which is about right for 6.
What about line diameters on this?
I tend to fish with 018 line,
Yeah.
main line, and then have an 016 hook length.
You've got a very, very short line to the pole tip as well.
Yeah, yeah. It's one of the key things, obviously, with carp fishing. I think one of the most important things we've all had to learn, even as very top anglers, is not to strike.
Yes.
And it was something that's very difficult for me, because I'm fishing internationals with Bloodworm and Joker, and you know you can be waiting for a bite and striking hard, even at small fish, to make sure you connect. But the way that carp fishing's evolved, the amount of fish you get in your peg to strike is absolutely
fatal, isn't it?
Fatal, yeah. You just can't do it.
Before we talk about elastics and you've got a little pole pot on the end of there, before we do that, just take me through. You've got several rigs set up here today. Just take us through the rigs that you've actually set up for each.
Sure.
Each
As I
swim,
said, we've got the 0.4 rig, which is basically shotted with number 8s, just spaced out in the last third of the depth.
Yeah.
Just get it down as quick as you can with that size of rig.
Right.
I then have here another rig, which is same float, but it's in 0.6. Slightly more bulked up shotting to get the bait down. That's just in case the tow starts, the wind turns round, and I can actually hold my bait in position perfectly well.
And of course, the beauty of this is that you can spread that shot around or whatever. I mean, I think too many anglers make the mistake of having two big shots. You know, they might have 2 BB on the line. You can't do anything with it then, can
you? No, you know, number 8s are great. They're really versatile. You know, move them about, do whatever you want.
And that's set. You've set that at the same depth as the other rig.
Set at almost dead depth.
Okay.
I mark my depth, and so I've got 2 rigs there covering my deep swim.
Right.
And then what I've actually done, I've set up a number of other rigs, which are shallow rigs, and they can also double up as a margin rig if I want. You know, small float, like a 0.1 with just 3 tiny number 10.
Okay.
That again, I can space out, or I can drop.
And that's on the same diameter line again?
That's on a 016 line, is that? Yeah, it's just I can fish it straight through.
Yeah.
No knots in the line.
Just dead simple, isn't it? The whole rig's dead simple.
Really, really
And
basic.
what about hooks? Are you using the same hooks on every rig?
Tend to use a similar pattern of hooks, which is a B911, for my 14, 16, 18 size work. Okay. For a size 12, I like to use a slightly heavier gauge. I use a 175, which is a Tubertini. But the 911s are fantastic for all the other work, really.
So you're going to be concentrating on what, 13 metres?
I've plumbed up at 13 metres. I've not got a very pronounced ledge any nearer than 13 metres. You know, working out that the ledge is very, very close. So what I tend to do.
There's a good fish over there.
Yeah, there's a lot of fish boshing out today, which is a good sign.
Amazing, when you get a bit of sun on the water. I mean, when we first arrived today, there was nothing around, but there's fish starting to move now as the sun's come out.
The feeling that water temperature go up, aren't they?
Definitely.
And it's something that, you know, you've got to be very conscious this time of year. The fish, even though it's cold, the fish can come up in the water. They come into the margins very quickly on days like this when you get the heat, and they need this warm water to keep them moving, keep them feeding. Yeah. No problem.
Okay, so we've got a deep rig.
We covered the deep rigs. You've got the shallow and margin rigs. So I've set up 3 different shallow margin rigs, which are combinations. So if I need to fish slightly deeper on the shallow line further out, if the fish do come up off the bottom, then I've got the rigs covered. Okay. So it's just duplications, really, just to make sure I cover all my options.
You know, when you mentioned about margin fishing, we get a lot of letters sent into the magazine about where do people actually fish? I mean, do you look to fish right up in the reeds? Do you look to fish at the bottom of a ledge if you've got one? I mean, what have you found here today looking at this, and what's going to govern your decision of where to put your bait?
For me, there's two things that govern where I will fish, and that's the cover that is in my swim,
Right.
and the depth of water that basically is under that cover.
Right.
If, for example, you've got that much water under a nice overhanging bush, then generally it's very difficult to catch fish there.
Yeah.
What you've got to look for is what I class as a feeding area, feeding table. If the fish can come onto it inconspicuously and feed without being disturbed of, without feeling that they can be seen, then they'd be fine. Look for 2 foot of water. If you can get 2 foot of water that far from the bank, then you do that.
Right.
Because the far bank, just a blank far bank, is a perfect cover for
Yeah,
fish.
that's really good tip.
But if you've got that kind of peg that is actually 4 inches and then it's sloping away and sloping away and sloping away, then you've got to just make a judgment.
Yeah.
Where will the fish feel comfortable? For me, 2 foot it's a really nice, comfortable area for fish to feed.
Okay.
You know, you feed 4-6 inches deep on that slope. When those fish come to mop the feed up, they'll be pushing bait and it'll be trundling down that ledge all the time. So you really have got to find where they want to sit for where the bait's landing.
Okay. And how are you going to feed it today?
Bearing in mind that we are now having cold evenings, I'm going to feed everything through a pot.
Okay.
And I'm going to be quite cautious to start with. Feel my way as if I would in a match. I'll start with a decent sized pot, but put, you know, they're allowed to use hemp here, so it's a great holding bait. It's hemp. Put a bit of hemp, a little bit of meat, a bit of corn, things that I expect to catch on the hook,
Right.
and just feel my way in. See which is the best bait, see where I'm getting the most bites from, and then start to focus by feeding more and more of that through that pot.
Okay.
And
Good
if there's a lot of fish there, then we can start to put more and more bait in.
Well, that's covered the rigs. Let's catch some fish, mate.
Okay.
Okay, we've got a 5-hour match starting now, hypothetically. How do you go about deciding how much bait to put at the start?
I think you just got to be very careful. You know, people tend to think carp, 200 pounds, 150 pounds, then lots of bait. You can catch a lot of fish on a small amount of bait, and I've made mistakes in the past where I've actually fed too much at the start. I've got all the fish I need in my peg and I can't catch them. And it's something I've learned certainly over the last few years, is just to be careful at the start. You know, you only need one fish in your peg to catch it,
Exactly.
and then you need some more. It's different in match conditions, but you know, I like to feed my way in, and basically, as I mentioned earlier, I'm starting with hemp. Put quite a bit of hemp in, because I think it's a great holding bait. It keeps fish there without filling them up.
I think it should be allowed at all fisheries, do you?
I mean, it's good bait, and as long as it's actually cooked properly, it's fine. Bit of corn, but not a massive amount of corn. Sample of meat, and just a few micro pellets on top.
Fanny Craddock's kitchen.
It's a mix and match. It's a mixture of what we're going to try.
Yes.
Because nobody knows what these fish are actually going to eat, but they will have a preference for what I've put in, and then now it's my job to try and find out exactly what they're going to eat.
Excellent. These adjustable cupping kits are good, aren't they?
They're great. I mean, they're great because several reasons. They're rigid. You can get.
There's just so many different length top joints you end up carrying around, don't you, for carp fishing and light fishing and all sorts.
It does the whole job.
It's absolutely perfect.
It does the whole job, and.
And I assume you're doing that one down the margin.
Yeah.
I assume you, when you're fishing out, you just look at a far bank mark just to line up against.
Yeah, just keep in mind a stationary marker. Trees, fence posts.
Not a car or a cab.
No. But you've also got to be mindful when there is a little bit of toys, you've got a marker there, but you could actually be fishing 2 metres down. If you've got tow or wind or anything, it's amazing. And even fish feeding on your bait, it's incredible how much fish will move your bait when you start picking at it and wafting the fins up and down on it all the time. You know, you need to be very mindful. You are fishing with the pot on your pole, and you are marking up, but it's often much better just to fish a little bit further away. Feed in the same spot all the time, but you know, have a search around. Right, let's have a go, shall we? You can see I've put the pot on the pole there. And because I've just fed, I'm not going to fill it up. And
these are the Fox toss pots.
Yeah.
Great name, mate.
Great name. But to be honest, a great pot. They're very, very good pots.
I mean, for years everyone was using the little Kinder pots, of course. But I mean, these things are fantastic, aren't they?
Yeah. Yeah.
To fit a variety of pole tips, as long as you get the right cup, you bang on, aren't you?
They're light. They're kind on your pole. They do everything that you need.
You know, one of the biggest problems people seem to have with starting a session, starting a match, is how long do you give it if nothing's happening? I mean, it's great if you go in now and you catch a fish, brilliant. But if you don't catch anything, how long do you give it before you do something different?
If you're seeing signs, and it's telling you there's fish there, then
there's some bubbles coming up already.
Exactly, there's some fish, but they could be skimmers, they could be perch, could be anything. Yeah. But you know, in a match, well, that was a bite straight away there.
Right. Oh, that was a good old bite. I think that fish hooked itself, didn't it?
Yeah, just virtually bounced on the pole, Dave. It's you know, it's interesting, all those indications we've got for the first few minutes, and you get a proper bite. It tells you, doesn't it?
Yeah.
You know,
that's the importance of short lines, isn't it? I mean, you don't have to strike that hard, do you, to get there?
No.
Elastics, right. There's so much debate about elastics. I'm fed up with reading on website message boards and questions we get sent in. There's this massive debate about hollow elastic and solid elastic.
Yeah.
And what's the best? And everybody you talk to seems to have different ideas. And what's your thoughts on that?
I've used hollow elastics extensively over the last few years, and you know, they work very, very well. But Steve Ringer catches a lot of carp, and he convinced me to have a go. Basically.
Just a lot. Yeah.
Convinced me to have a go with latex, and you know, so I've been playing with it.
That's solid latex, and
solid latex, yeah, in 1.6 and 1.8 mil, which is sort of 14 and 16 size elastics. Yeah. And it just seems to be very, very good at getting fishing quickly.
I must admit, we've done a lot of features with the magazine with Steve, and he just gets them out so quick, doesn't he? He just gets the fish out so quickly. Yeah. So when would you use? I mean, do you use hollow elastic at all now?
Yeah, I've still got it in my pole. It's very good when you need to use very heavy elastic, when you could encounter big fish in open water.
Right.
I mean, this is a good fish, but it's not putting up a great deal of a fight. You can see it's a nice fish, that. And light hollow elastics are still very good as well.
But for bagging situations, you reckon?
For bagging, you know, I haven't got this tight at the moment. It's just set nicely, just so that every fish can
good fish,
pull.
that, isn't it?
Yeah, pull a good amount of it.
The other debate, I look on the end of your elastic there, no connector. Some anglers favour connectors. You've just got a knot. What's the thinking behind that? I mean, in theory, you'd think the line would just, when it's under pressure, would just chop straight through the elastic, wouldn't you?
Yeah, but it's very resilient, the elastic.
Have you got any special connecting ideas?
I just use what you class as a spider knot. Right. I've always used it, and I have total confidence in it. And you've got to have confidence in your kit. And you know, I've never seen a need for connector.
Right.
But you know, again,
even on light elastics.
Even on light elastics, yeah. I change my elastics regularly, of course. So,
right.
You know.
How regular?
Depend on usage. But if you're catching hundreds of pounds worth of carp, then you've got to inspect it very, very regularly and make sure that there's nothing at all wrong with it. But I would expect every 4 or 5 weeks.
That's a good fish, this,
yeah,
isn't it?
It is a good fish, putting up a good account of itself, isn't it?
Oh, cracker.
It's coming now, though. It's just... I see a lot of people bullying the fish they hook as well. And I think I've probably been a culprit in the past myself, you know, it takes a long time to hook a fish. So
it don't count until it's in the net, does it?
No. I mean, if you've got the right elastic on, where it's putting the right amount of pressure onto the fish, it'll come as soon as it's ready.
Yeah.
If you try and push them and bully them, then you'll lose them. You know, the hook will pull out. And that's a good fish, and that's well on my way to a big target weight today.
What a great start.
Lovely start, isn't it?
Well done, mate.
Thank you. Another dozen of those will be fine today.
That's a belter, isn't it?
Yeah, lovely fish.
Superb.
Let's get him back.
You waited a long time for that bite, mate. I wonder what was happening to the swim then.
Yeah, there's a lot of activity, but I think it needs a rest, Dave, to be honest. And I'm just keeping my eye looking over that margin.
They're still there,
all the
aren't
time.
they? They're still there.
Well, I've kept it topped up, you know, just gently feeding it. And we'll have a go in a minute, I think. I'm going to give this peg a rest and just...
It's another big lad, isn't it?
Good fish. Very good fish.
It really is a fantastic fishery, isn't it, this?
Yeah, beautiful. I think I'll retire here. I've got to get a book off Roy and retire.
I thought you had.
I think we'll have a go on the margin swim now, Dave. Give that a rest. There's one, Dave. Didn't take long, did it? Didn't take long to get a fish there.
Another good fish?
No, it doesn't feel that big actually. Feels like a skimmer. Or a great big roach.
I can't believe you just had a roach on that. Roach, a clever fish.
These love meat, absolutely love meat.
Fantastic.
Just like a river roach that, Dave, look at that. Beautiful fish.
Brilliant. Well, that's a good time, and I reckon by my clock you've got about 30 seconds left.
Ah, that's
and as soon as it's a match practice, I'll give you the 15 minutes to get it out.
perfectly timed that, Dave.
You've got a right old weight now. What do you reckon you got in that net?
60, probably 70 pounds.
What, including this?
Well, with this, maybe a bit more than 70 pounds. Feels like a good fish.
And if this had been a match today, you reckon that would be enough to win?
Well, if nobody's got 80.
There's always one, isn't there?
No, in all seriousness, we've had a good day and we've caught steadily. And, you know, the way the swims have built and built and built this last hour, I'd like to think that this could be a match-winning weight, certainly.
I mean,
get this one in.
You're a full international these days. You've fished loads of carp matches. How important is practice to you?
Well, it's the same old story. Look at any type of sport, practice is key. No matter how good you are, there's always somebody who practice harder than you to try and beat you. So I mean, that's good fish, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's critical to practice. But fishing especially, you know, there's so many variables. There's no day the same. No day at all.
The feeding has just been so important today, hasn't it?
Just little enough.
It's really, I mean, you've literally fed for every fish, haven't you?
Yeah, just tried to keep the bait going and get the fish. This is a big old fish, is this? You can tell he's just plodding, isn't he? Let's see if he'll come to the net.
Cracking one to finish on.
Lovely fish, isn't it?
You've still got about 10 minutes to get it out.
Ooh.
I think you might land this. Well done, mate.
That's a lovely fish, isn't it? Big old fish. Nice fish is that.
Superb.
Lovely fish, Dave, yeah? Put him straight back in the net.
Well, what another fantastic match fishing masterclass. What have we learned from today's session? Well, the main thing is, I think, is feeding. We've fed 2 separate swims. It's been a cold day to start with, but by carefully feeding each swim and feeding for every bite, he's ended up with a really good catch. And personally, I think he'd have won the match if it had been one here today. See you again soon.
Hello there, my name's David Hall, and for my sins I'm the publisher of Total Carp Fishing Magazine and Advanced Carp Fishing Magazine. I've come to the Larford fishery today in the heart of Worcestershire. It's a beautiful fishery and it's full of fish. But I've come here with a question in mind. To quote Dick Walker, why is it that 20% of the anglers catch 80% of the fish? Well, one such angler is Darren Ritchie, known better to most of you as the Don. I've come to catch up with him. He's fishing along the bank. Let's go and see how he's getting on. Morning.
Morning, David.
How are you?
Nice to see you.
And you, and you. Isn't it lovely?
It's absolutely gorgeous this
Autumn
morning.
morning.
We've got nice, the wind's just got up just before you got here about an hour ago. That's what we need, a little bit of wind.
A lot of fish
hopefully.
topping as I walk round.
Yep, there is a lot of fish topping out there.
Tell me something. When you come to a fishery like this, which is a prolific fishery, a lot of carp and a lot of big carp, you're on the far bank. From an obvious point of view, you're away from the madding crowd. But what do you look for when you come to a place like this in terms of a swim? What made you pick this particular swim?
Well, A number of things. I spoke to the bailiff yesterday.
Local knowledge.
And you've got, local knowledge. You need someone that, if you can speak to people. I spoke to a few people yesterday who were fishing in the swim to my right, and they managed to catch a couple of fish. The other thing is, when I looked at the areas of the lake, yesterday there was a slight wind blowing down towards that end, but it wasn't nothing serious to push the fish up there to feed. Normally you'll have either end of the lake or the middle. I've chosen the middle because while I was watching yesterday from on the bank opposite, I saw quite a few fish put their little heads out there, and I just thought, looks like a good spot.
What's your approach been today? How have you fed the swim? What bait are you using?
Right, today I'm using mainline baits. I'm using the mainline boilies. I've got the pulse and the pineapple. Any bait, boilie wise, is from the mainline stable is, a good bait. Oh, got a little liner then. Oh,
I think it's a bit more than that.
Here we go. I think we're in. There we go. Yes, please. Number one.
Well, that didn't take very long, did it?
No, it's only been out there about 10 minutes, I suppose. It does help. We put quite a bit of feed out there. Oh, it's come off. Never mind. What I've tried to do is I'm trying to single out the bigger fish. So what I'm doing is I'm fishing 2 boilies on the hair. I'm sure another one will come along in a minute.
Let's just have a look at that and let's have a look at your setup while you...
Oh, I wonder what that was. Now, I'm going to show you now. Look at that. What I reckon's happened here, we've had another fish come through which was trailing a hook length.
So that wasn't that
wasn't a bite. No
No
wonder it was a bit strange, because normally they fire off like a rocket in here. And I reckon what's happened, someone's had a hook length on there, and he's run across my line, or he's come round to eat the bait, and it's got caught up on it. Look at that.
So that's part of somebody else's rig?
Yeah, that was somebody else's rig. You can't emphasise enough on, rigs that discharge quickly. With this one, right, what we got a clip on there, which all of this can all fall to pieces. If a fish gets tethered or anything like that, it can discharge the lead. There's a little nipple on the side of there. And if I fish in weedy waters, where you want to get the fish to the surface as quickly as possible, when you've got a lead on, the fish will stay down deep, right, and it will catch on the weed. And what happens, if you only push it on slightly, you can discharge that lead, right, which automatically will force the fish to the surface. Right, well, I don't know what's gone on there. All we've got is the clip back, but that is definitely, I reckon, that there was a fish on the end of that. Maybe on this end, whether the lead was on that end, I don't know. But having that there coming off of the line like that, yeah, that's a road trader, that one.
A foreign body. So let's have a look at what you've got here. So
right,
run that past me.
Run that past you. Right, what we've got is I've put on 2 boilies. Reason being, there's quite a few small carp like this, and to be quite honest, we don't want to catch them, we want to catch the bigger ones. And I've found that when I've fished here before, if you fish with a double bait on here, sometimes I put a treble bait on as well, it seems to get round the smaller fish. Yeah. Right, what I've done is, because on the lake it's nylon hook lengths only, there's no braided hook lengths, we've tied that. We call this a stiff rig, right? And what it is, like a fish. If I said to you, what is the easiest thing for a carp to get rid of? Is it a square bait or a round bait?
I don't know the answer to that question.
Well, if you suck that in, if when a fish sucks that in, if you've got like just say one single round bait on the end, it will suck it in and it can go and blow it straight out. the reason you've got the stiff rig is it makes it really hard for it to eject it, right? Plus having 2 baits on as well, you know, it is difficult. And that's it, we've got a loop at one end just to give it a little bit of movement.
And what breaking strain is this?
That is £25.
Right.
Right. I know it's, some people will think that's, you know, on some lakes you go down fine, which you do. This is quite a cloudy lake. And also I'm using a fluorocarbon. When you put that in the water, that will disappear.
Yeah.
So we've got the loop, you know, that is really difficult. If you was to have, say for argument's sake, a £6 line on it, right, it would
be much more supple.
Yeah, and obviously it can eject it a little bit easier. And what I've done is a knotless knot. If you notice, these hooks that I'm using are, they've got an slightly inturned eye on them, so that when the fish picks it up, it works like a liner really, and it just spins it round. When you run that across your hand, it will just turn and go in every time. Because this is where you want to hook them. You don't want to hook them, you know, up here.
No.
You want to get them bang in the centre of the lip.
And what hook is that you're using?
This is a new one from Mava. This is one of our hooks, which is in our range. To be honest with you, the time that we're doing this, we haven't really put a name on it.
Right. So it's a prototype?
Yes, these are, you know, ones that I play around with. I like a long shank hook.
That didn't take very long, did it?
No, we just had that little episode on the other rod.
Is that a back lead you've got on there?
Yeah, that's a back lead. To put the back lead on, I'll tell you why. It's, number one, we've got swans bobbing up and down the margins, and I don't want them to take the line out. But one of the things that I do find when you fish here, when you get a fish into the margin, they normally go crazy, bonkers.
Is there a definite shelf?
Yeah, where it runs out from here. You know, there is definitely a drop-off there. What happens, as soon as they come along the edge, they try and take the other rods out. They know that if they come along the edges, they've got a good chance of slipping the hook or whatever.
And are you fishing the same baits on this rod as you were fishing on the first one?
Yeah, exactly the same. Exactly the same. You can't beat a bit of pineapple. I love a pineapple wanger. You got to use a pineapple wanger.
I don't know about you, but I've found in the summer, and I suppose we're coming to the end, well, we've come to the end of it, but I've had tremendous success with halibut.
Oh, halibut. Well, the thing is with halibut, it's very oily. And what happens is, you know, in the winter months, if you start pumping oil into them, it's, you know, it's like lard, if you like.
Yeah, they can't digest it the same.
And the pellets don't discharge the oil like they should because the water temperatures are so cold.
Yeah. But do you find that in the summer the fish meal based baits work well?
Oh yeah, they always will. Whoa, here he goes. Yeah, I think he's just found the shell.
I think you're right.
Come on, ride him, tiger. Just a little scamp. Last night I had 4 up to £22. I had an incredible fish, and it just looked like it'd been in a paintball fight. It had all orange dots all over it. Incredible fish.
Oh, it's not as big as I thought at first.
But that is just a
nice
little
fish, though.
It's straight, you know, wow, it's any fish. Can you see that, how he's blown the rig right the way up the line? Can you see that?
Yeah.
Come here, little fella.
There you go.
Notice this, look, I dropped the lead inside the net. If you leave it outside, sometimes when you go to lift the net up and the lead's outside, it'll hang the fish up the side, and of course it'll muck the fish up, and you don't want to do that. So if we just put in there, I'll go and get my net, me unhooking mat. We'll plop him down over here, and away we go. Right, put that down over here. Always try and stand it up. Don't leave it laying on the floor because you might jump on it. And there you go, there's the first little fella. That little one there. God, he's small, isn't he?
Well, you're 5,
you
6
put
pounds.
2 slices of bread round it and eat it. So we're slipping back and we get ready for the next one.
That was a good start.
Business on prize.
2 bites in the first half an hour. That's not bad going, is it?
Ah, wait till he gets going.
Well, I've just seen a most extraordinary sight. 6 men trying to get in a 1-man bivvy. As you can see, it's been raining. Has it just? It's gone flat calm.
Yeah, I can see that. It's like mill pond.
It's amazing, isn't it? We had a nice ripple, a nice breeze, everything was going fine. Comes the rain, goes flat calm, we've not had a bite for 20 minutes. What's plan B?
Plan B is we got to get out there and get onto the top because it's gone flat calm. All the fish are on the surface. On this lake, being a match lake, they fish the bagging waggler a lot, so they're firing out pellet and they're taking them off of the top 3 foot of the water.
Now that's not your game, is it?
No. You know, like I do fish a rig called a zig rig.
Right.
All right, and you know, I think what we've got to do is we've got to try and put another rod out, I reckon, and have a little go.
There's a lot of bubbles over to our right, isn't there?
Yeah. Well, the thing is now they're on the top, they're having a little go. You can see them, look, there's rakes of them out there.
So tell me about the zig rig.
The zig rig, well, what it is, you use a nylon hook length, which is quite a light poundage, and what you do is, whatever depth the water is, say it's 11 foot, what you do is you set up a hook length anywhere between a foot below the surface down to 3 foot below the surface. You have to find out what level they're on. And what you do is you fish it on a running lead, but what we're going to do, which is a little bit different, normally when you fish a zig rig, when they're up in the middle layers, you put the rod out there and you don't feed over the top of it. But because of this old bagging waggler thing, what we're going to do, I'm going to stand there and I'm going to feed it. I've got to feed it all the time to keep them fish going through it.
I think this is something that a lot of inexperienced anglers don't understand, and that is when the fish are up in the water, as soon as that bait goes by them, it's as good as dead, isn't it?
Oh yeah, oh my God, we're away. Hey, look at that.
Here we go, my son.
Yeah, look, that's one off the bottom. Well, you can't beat that.
This really is a lovely time of year, isn't it?
Oh, it's wonderful.
This feels a reasonable,
It's
reasonable fish.
small to medium, I reckon. When you're playing a fish and you do what I've just done, you crouch down, it all seems to go out of control. I know match anglers sit on their boxes all the time, don't they?
Yeah.
And very rare they get up off of them when they're playing a fish. But, go on. He's having a go, isn't he?
Yeah.
You wouldn't believe he's that big, would you? I think what it is, when you get a lot of these match waters, what happens, you end up with, because they're fishing with really fine lines, the old fish, it's like they've been down the gym, they have a workout because they take a lot, and they're very, very fit fish. Because it takes a long while to, you know, for the match anglers to play them in. What doesn't help is blowing the lead up, look. He's blowing the lead up above the leader. Yeah, get in there.
Well done, my son.
Let's have a quick one at the camera and we'll slip him straight back.
That's a nice looking fish, isn't it?
There you go, it's all nice and intact. Its old mouth in good condition. Look at that. That'll do, not a monster, but it's a fish. Let's slip him back, take him back in the net. You don't want to drop him, and what we do, we plop him in over here, and away he goes. Go on. Nice one. Oh, hey, here we go again. Come on.
I don't think you're ever destined to fish this zig rig, you know.
Well, the way it's going now.
That came from nowhere, didn't it?
Yeah. Well, I'd only just cast it out. Look, I've been shuffling all the gear around to get the zig rig in there. Well, that'll do. In you go. Thank you very much, sweet, lovely. Cheers. Only a little one, but that'll do.
The last one you had was about £8.
Yeah.
Nice fish.
Well, this one, I think you'd use that for a live bait.
Little mirror.
Yeah, little mirror. Tiny little mirror, look at that.
And was that on two boilies?
No, that was on a single one. This is what I said about the two boilies. Yeah. Right, there's me little chappie. Woohoo! Don't go in, look at that little fella. Go on. See you later. Tell your mum I want to catch you. Bye-bye.
Well, it seems to have calmed down again and given Derek enough time to set up his zig rig rod, which I'm fascinated to find out about. Derek, show us what you've got. This is the zig rig.
This is the zig rig. All right, what you've got is a small hook with, and what I've done is I've cut the pop-up down so it looks, you know, it's more like a pellet.
So this is the pineapple that we've been
this
using.
is the pineapple one. The reason I've put that on, you know, we can try a few things out. We can try different, you know, I've got darker coloured pop-ups that we can put in there. And the thing is, it's I've put a yellow one on so that visually they might be able to see it a little bit better.
So you're going to fish this, what, about 9 foot off the bottom?
About 9 foot off the bottom.
In what, 11 foot of water?
Yeah, it's 11 and a half foot of water.
Yeah.
As you can see, it's quite a long hook length, you know, like right up here at the top end. And what we've got is we've got a small lead, not, you know, a big lead. You want sort of an ounce and a half.
That's pretty straightforward, isn't it?
Well,
nothing complicated about that.
Straightforward. The more complicated you make it, the more things can go wrong.
Right.
And
so
then what we're going to do is we'll put that. We've got all this put together, and I'm going to do it a little bit different, as I said earlier. What I said was normally you put a zig rig out and just leave it out there, but because of this bagging wrangler method where they fire the pellet, I've put a little mix together out of all these baits, as you can see. What I've done is I've got some mainline pineapple proactive pellets. Right, they're a little bit slower breakdown, but it's, you know, it's just all different bits and pieces.
And these are sweet pineapples, so it's complementing the hook bait.
That's right. And what we've got here, in this one, you know, like we've got the tuna.
I was talking to you about these earlier. The fish in my pond absolutely love them.
Oh, no, they go crazy
love
for them. And on this one, we've got the milky coconut. And what I've done as well is put a little bit of ground bait in there. This one is an activated fish mix. I know normally you'd wet it up and everything else, but for our spotting reasons, it just if I can put a little cloud over it. And by the way, you've got a load of it on your hooker. Come on.
And you've got one?
Yeah, he's there.
Nice fish?
That's a barbie.
Is it? But that method that you're fishing there is so unbelievably simple, isn't it?
Oh yeah, just a bit of paste, a bit of hook, and that's it.
Nothing, not an old hair rig, nothing, just some paste on a hook, just chucked down the side.
Thing is, we had to take this one a little bit easy because that's a bit lighter, that old line that we got on there. the hook length is probably
But I
10,
think if it doesn't...
£10, something like that. Here we go.
I think what it proves though, Derek, is you've got to keep working, haven't you? You've got to keep trying new
you
things.
can't keep still, can you? And there you go. Come on.
So we've put all that bait out there, and we've sat behind your rods.
Yeah.
Did it all right. Nothing.
And we just had
For the
a
best
little
part of an
play.
hour. And then you do no more than tie a bit of monofilament and a hook on your line, a bit of paste, and first put in under the tree, 3 foot from the bank.
Yep.
That, as they say, is fishing.
Oh yes. It's been difficult because this old weather and everything else.
Well, I think the fact that after that rain, it just went flat calm. There was a little flurry there, wasn't there? And then nothing, and then...
I think that was a bit over excessive. We didn't net about that.
Yeah, well, there you go. I've enjoyed this session with Derek. There's no question he's a character. But what's come out of this for me is that if you want to just pitch up and chuck out, then there's a reasonable chance on this type of fishery that you will catch some fish. But Derek's called upon all his experience. He's tried different things. Some things have worked, some things have not worked. The weather's been extremely changeable. For the most part, very, very mild. We had a very severe downpour. And as I say, it was just a little humorous watching 6 blokes trying to get in a one-man bivvy. But it's about versatility. Derek's persevered, he's tried things, and at the end of the day, he's had a good session. I think you'd all agree. I hope you've enjoyed the programme, and I hope we'll catch up with you again sometime. Bye for now.